Most people don't even realize they're breaking these powerful, unwritten rules of life. They're listening, but not to understand, just to respond. Think about it. You're opening up, saying something that matters, and the other person is already crafting their comeback. Not because they're rude, but because we've all been trained this way. Be quick, be clever, say something back, but real connection. It doesn't come from saying the next thing. It comes from letting someone finish theirs, listening too truly. Understand means pausing your ego. It means hearing how something is said, not just what's said. The tone, the silence, the emotion hiding in the pause. Imagine this. Someone says, "Work's been overwhelming lately." The reflex, "Yeah, me too." But what if you stayed with them and asked, "What's been going on?" That tiny shift changes everything from a competition to connection. Because when people feel heard, they stop defending, they stop repeating, they start trusting. And in that moment, they don't just feel answered, they feel understood, and that changes lives. Try to make win-win always. Most people approach disagreements with a fixed mindset, thinking that if one person gains, the other must lose. This zero-sum thinking misses a powerful opportunity, the chance to create outcomes that benefit both sides. The concept of a win-win isn't just corporate speak. It's grounded in human psychology. It reflects a mindset that prioritizes collaboration over competition and long-term relationships over short-term victories. At its heart, win-win thinking is about solving problems in ways that honor everyone's needs, rather than treating every situation as a battleground. Take a simple example. Two roommates are arguing over who gets the bigger bedroom. If one insists on claiming it without compromise, the other feels wronged. But what if they reframe the situation? One takes the larger room and pays more rent, or the other gets a bonus like a better workspace or more closet space. It's not perfect, but both feel heard and respected. Psychologically, this taps into our sense of fairness, autonomy, and intrinsic motivation. People are more open and cooperative when they feel they have a voice, not when they're pressured. This approach also sparks creativity. When we stop trying to win at someone else's expense, we unlock new ideas that wouldn't surface in a competitive mindset. Over time, this builds trust. When others see that you're genuinely looking out for mutual benefit, not just your own, they're more likely to reciprocate. That creates stronger relationships where good outcomes become the norm, not the exception. Of course, crafting win-win scenarios takes effort. It requires patience, empathy, and a willingness to understand the other side. But when it works, it does more than solve a single problem. It shapes how people see you and how you view the world around you. Compliment effort, not just outcome. It's easy to admire results. "You're so smart, that turned out perfectly." But there's a deeper, more meaningful kind of praise, one that highlights the effort behind the achievement. Complimenting effort, not just outcome, is rooted in the idea of a growth mindset, a concept developed by psychologist Carol Dweck. It explains how the kind of feedback we receive shapes how we approach success and failure. When praise focuses solely on results, people often begin to link their self-worth to outcomes, something they can't always control. But when we recognize effort, we nurture persistence, grit, and long-term motivation. For instance, telling a student "you must be really smart" reinforces something fixed. Saying "you must have worked hard on this" shifts the focus to what they controlled: their strategy, time, and dedication. This distinction matters because results don't always tell the whole story. Someone might put in hours of work and still not succeed. Recognizing effort shows them their hard work still matters, regardless of the outcome. It builds self-belief grounded in what they do, not just what they achieve. And this mindset applies everywhere, not just in school. Telling a friend, "I can tell how much thought went into this," or a coworker, "You handled that carefully," acknowledges their process, not just their performance. Effort-based praise reinforces emotional resilience. It reminds people that progress isn't just about luck or innate talent, it's about showing up, trying, and learning. By celebrating the journey, not just the destination, we help others stay motivated through setbacks and take pride in their commitment, not just their results. Own your slice of the mess first. This principle comes from conflict resolution and behavioral psychology. In most disagreements, responsibility isn't one-sided, but conversations stall when both parties focus only on defending themselves. The breakthrough often comes when one person takes a small but powerful step, owning their part first. Why does this work? Because it activates the psychological principle of reciprocity. When someone shows vulnerability or takes responsibility, it lowers the other person's defenses and invites cooperation. The tone shifts from opposition to dialogue. Imagine a tense moment with a coworker. Instead of saying, "You misunderstood me," you say, "I realize I interrupted you, that probably didn't help." That one sentence can change the entire direction of the conversation. This applies in personal relationships too. Telling a partner, "I was defensive and I shouldn't have been," sets the stage for a more honest exchange. Even when the other person may hold more responsibility, starting with your part encourages them to reflect on theirs. It's not about taking all the blame, it's about taking the first step. Owning your slice is a signal. You're not here to argue, here to understand. You're choosing clarity over ego. And often, that small moment of ownership is the key that unlocks progress, softens emotions, and creates the space for real resolution to begin. Mirror feelings first. Before jumping into solutions, try something else. Mirror the feeling. A friend says, "I'm just so exhausted by everything," and before they've even finished, you're already offering advice. Get more sleep, go for a walk, take a break. It's instinctive. But what they really needed wasn't to fix it, was to feel understood. The concept of mirror feelings first, fixes can wait, is simple but deeply effective. When someone shares emotional struggles, their first need isn't solutions, is validation. It means showing that you hear how they feel, not just what they said. Mirroring isn't robotic repetition. It's naming the emotion calmly and clearly. If someone says, "I feel stuck," you might respond, "That sounds really frustrating. No tips, yet just empathy." This helps diffuse emotional tension. When people feel heard, they become more open, not just to conversation, but eventually to solutions. Skip this step, and even well-meaning advice can feel dismissive. This taps into one of our most basic psychological needs, emotional validation. When someone acknowledges our emotions, our brains calm down, making it easier to reflect, think, and move forward. Mirroring doesn't require special training, just awareness. You listen for more than just words. You pay attention to tone, energy, and the underlying emotion. It's a pause before the plan. And that pause, brief as it is, can completely transform a conversation, helping someone feel seen before they're steered. Keep your humor fresh. A joke can be hilarious the first time, but by the third, it starts to feel stale. That's because humor thrives on surprise and repetition kills surprise. In psychology, this is known as habituation. Our brains tune out what they've already seen. A fresh joke lights up the brain. A tired one fades into background noise. This applies to more than punchlines. It includes tone, timing, and even the fallback jokes we use in meetings, conversations, or online. Reused lines might feel safe, but over time, they can come across as rehearsed rather than real. People respond to humor that feels alive, not just funny, but present. Fresh humor isn't about being clever all the time. It's about noticing the moment. What just happened that was unexpected or absurd? That shared recognition that you had to be there. Feelings where the best humor lives. Think improv, not stand-up. You're not performing for laughs. You're responding to what's happening around you in real time. That's why your funniest friends often aren't repeating the same old bits. They're in sync with the moment. When your humor feels flat, it might be time to update your lens. What worked once might not hit the same now, and that's okay. Good humor evolves with you. Keeping it fresh means staying aware, staying present, and choosing real connection over routine punchlines. Prioritize presence over ping. You're deep in a conversation when your phone lights up. Just a quick glance, nothing urgent, but the moment shifts. What you're experiencing is known as attention residue. Even after returning to the conversation, part of your focus remains stuck in the notification. The brain doesn't multitask as well as we think, toggles quickly between tasks, and depth gets lost in the process. To prioritize presence over pings means choosing to be fully engaged, not just physically, but mentally. It's about resisting the subtle pull of notifications, buzzes, and background noise that constantly compete for your focus. In a world filled with distractions, news, alerts, group chats, endless feeds, true presence has become rare. But that's exactly why it matters so much. Research shows people feel more connected and valued when they're given undivided attention. No glancing at screens, no distracted replies, just focused presence. It sends a powerful message. You're important enough for me to pause everything else. That doesn't mean never checking your phone or ignoring responsibilities. It means being deliberate. Silence the pings when you're with someone. Schedule focused time when working. Allow moments of quiet when alone, without automatically reaching for stimulation. Because presence isn't just polite, it's a mental decision. One that boosts memory, strengthens relationships, and lowers stress. In a world built to divide, your attention, choosing presence, is a quiet act of rebellion. It says, this moment gets all of me. Not the fragmented version, but the one that listens, notices, and stays. Pass the praise and hold the fault. When things go right, it's tempting to take the credit. When they go wrong, the instinct is often to shift blame elsewhere. But great relationships and strong leadership live by a simple rule: pass the praise and hold the fault. This principle taps into core psychological drivers: fairness, trust, and emotional safety. When someone claims all the credit in a group effort, it breeds resentment. But when they shine a light on others, recognizing teammates, supporters, or collaborators, it builds motivation and loyalty. On the flip side, owning your mistakes even partially fosters credibility. Psychologists call this an internal locus of control, the belief that you're responsible for your actions, especially when things get tough. It's not about taking the fall for everything. It's about stepping up when it counts. Take a workplace example. A leader who says, "The team did an amazing job, this was their success," boosts morale. And if things fall short and they say, "That's on me, should have flagged it earlier," they build respect. This mindset creates a culture where people feel safe being honest and taking initiative. It also shows up in personal life. Giving others credit while being accountable yourself demonstrates emotional maturity. It reminds people that praise doesn't have to be hoarded and responsibility doesn't have to be avoided. These small, daily choices shape how people see you not just as capable, but as someone worth trusting and following. Kindness is doing, not offering. Most people want to be kind. They say things like, "Let me know if you need anything," or "I'm here if you want to talk." The intention is good, but often those words don't turn into action. That's the heart of this idea. Kindness is doing, not offering. From a psychological lens, offering support makes us feel good. It checks a mental box. I said something helpful. But for the person in need, especially if they're overwhelmed, vague offers can feel like one more task. Now they have to figure out what to ask for, how to ask, and whether they're burdening someone. True kindness skips the offer and moves into action. Don't just say, "I'm here." Bring them food. Send them a playlist. Water their plants. These tangible gestures are easier to receive and far more meaningful. Psychologically, this reduces what's known as social friction. Tiny barriers that make it hard to accept help. Vague offers shift the mental load back to the person who's already tired. Specific actions remove that burden entirely. Even in group settings, saying someone should check in on them isn't the same as actually reaching out. Of course, words still matter, but it's action that brings real relief. Small, thoughtful gestures show someone you noticed and cared enough to act without waiting. And often, it's not the scale of the gesture, it's that it happened at all. That's when kindness truly lands, with quiet, visible support that doesn't ask anything in return. Rest is a strategy, not a reward. Too often, rest is seen as something we earn a reward for finishing the work. But in both psychology and performance science, rest isn't a luxury. It's a strategy the brain and body aren't built for. Constant effort. When we push through long stretches of work, especially under stress, our focus, decision-making, and creativity all decline. That's because mental energy is limited. Without breaks, cognitive fatigue sets in, leading to mistakes, slower reactions, and eventually burnout. Research shows that short, well-timed breaks improve performance. Whether it's stepping away from your screen for 5 minutes, taking a walk, or planning regular days off, intentional rest gives the brain space to reset. Athletes structure recovery into training. Surgeons and musicians use pauses to maintain accuracy, yet in many work cultures, rest is viewed with suspicion, as laziness or lack of drive. Reframing it as a key part of the process shifts everything. It's not about doing less, it's about working smarter. A rested mind is clearer, more creative, more emotionally stable. Rest also protects motivation over the long run. When people treat it as fuel, not a prize, they perform better and stay consistent. They don't wait until they're completely drained. They recharge along the way. Rest isn't what you get after the work is done. It's what helps you do the work well. It's not the break at the end. It's a built-in part of the system from the beginning. Spot potential, name it aloud. Sometimes a single comment stays with you for years, not because it was loud or flashy, but because it captured something true. You're good at this. you've got something special. That's the idea. Behind spot potential, name it aloud. Psychologically, this connects to positive reinforcement and the concept of self-efficacy, people's belief in their ability to succeed. Many people can't see their own strengths clearly, especially when they're just starting or struggling. When someone else points it out, it gives shape to something abstract. But it's not about vague compliments. It's about being specific and sincere. Instead of saying, "Nice job." Try, "You asked a really thoughtful question in that meeting. You've got a talent for cutting through the noise." That kind of feedback sticks, because it feels true and earned. Naming someone's potential helps shape their inner narrative, the story they tell themselves about who they are and what they can do. That narrative influences how they take risks, face setbacks, and stretch their limits. This moment of recognition can happen anywhere. A coach sees leadership in a quiet player. A teacher notices insight in a student. A friend acknowledges emotional intelligence in a tough conversation. These aren't just compliments. Their direction and timing matters. Potential often shows up not when someone's polished, but when they're still growing. That's when your words can make the biggest impact. Noticing is powerful, but naming it aloud makes it real. It tells someone, "I see this in you." And sometimes that's exactly what they need to hear to believe it themselves. Offer the last slice and mean it. You're sitting around a dinner table with friends. One slice of pizza remains. Everyone notices it, yet no one reaches for it. Suddenly, that final slice becomes more than just food. It becomes a subtle social moment. In psychology, this plays into ideas like reciprocity and altruism. We're wired to pay attention to fairness, and offering someone the last slices, especially when it's desirable, is a small but powerful act of generosity. It shows you're thinking about the group, not out of obligation, but by choice. But here's where it gets deeper. When you offer it and truly mean it, it changes the tone. People can sense hesitation. A polite offer followed by a slow, reluctant reach or "Are you sure?" feels insincere. Real generosity is felt when it's clean, no guilt, no expectations, just a genuine gesture. Psychologists refer to this as costly signaling. True generosity involves giving something valuable, not just what you didn't want anyway. The last slice is a perfect, low-pressure example. It's not about the food, it's about the signal. These small acts quietly communicate who you are when no one's keeping score. Over time, these choices shape how others see you. Saying, "You can have it," and actually meaning it, sends a message about the culture. You're part of a culture built on respect, good faith, and shared space. In the end, it's one small action that leaves a lasting impression. Offer the last slice and mean it. You're sitting around a dinner table with friends. One slice of pizza remains. Everyone notices it, yet no one reaches for it. Suddenly, that final slice becomes more than just food. It becomes a subtle social moment. In psychology, this plays into ideas like reciprocity and altruism. We're wired to pay attention to fairness, and offering someone the last slice, especially when it's desirable, is a small but powerful act of generosity. It shows you're thinking about the group, not out of obligation, but by choice. But here's where it gets deeper. When you offer it and truly mean it, it changes the tone. People can sense hesitation. A polite offer followed by a slow, reluctant reach or "Are you sure?" feels insincere. Real generosity is felt when it's clean, no guilt, no expectations, just a genuine gesture. Psychologists refer to this as costly signaling. True generosity involves giving something valuable, not just what you didn't want anyway. The last slice is a perfect low-pressure example. It's not about the food, it's about the signal. These small acts quietly communicate who you are. When no one's keeping score, over time, these choices shape how others see you. Saying, "You can have it," and actually meaning it, sends a message about the culture. You're part of a culture built on respect, good faith, and shared space. In the end, it's one small action that leaves a lasting impression. Timing matters more than truth. The truth can be solid, accurate, and even helpful, but if said at the wrong time, it can completely backfire. That's the core of this idea. Timing matters more than truth. In both psychology and real life, what we say often matters less than when we say it. This isn't about hiding facts or sugarcoating reality. It's about recognizing emotional timing. When someone is overwhelmed, grieving, or emotionally raw, they often can't process feedback even if it's thoughtful and well-intended. For example, right after someone hears bad news, you might be tempted to offer perspective. Everything happens for a reason, or you'll grow from this. While those may be true, if said too soon, they land as dismissive. The person isn't ready to reflect. They're still in the middle of it. This links to emotional regulation. The brain needs time to settle before it can absorb meaningful insights. If you rush in with honesty while emotions are high, you won't be heard, you'll be resisted. The same goes for conflict. Offering critique in the heat of an argument might be truthful, but it won't be productive. Waiting until emotions cool allows your words to land. It shows empathy and emotional intelligence. Understanding the right moment to speak is a powerful skill one. That transforms your truth from something potentially harmful into something that helps. Because even the most valuable truth needs space to be received. Give presence, not just presents. Someone hands you a beautifully wrapped gift, but their eyes are on their phone, their mind elsewhere. You may appreciate the gift, but something's missing: attention. That's what give presence, not just presence, is about. In today's world, attention is one of the most meaningful forms of care. Psychologically, giving someone your full focus signals validation. Eye contact, listening without interruption, and being mentally there says, "You matter right now." It's easy to assume that gifts are the main way we show appreciation. But studies consistently show that emotional presence has a far greater impact on relationship satisfaction. Being fully present communicates trust, safety, and connection. In practice, this could mean putting your phone away at dinner, pausing, multitasking during a conversation, or resisting the urge to mentally rehearse your response while someone speaks. These simple actions create invisible warmth that objects alone can't offer. Being present also benefits the giver. It lowers stress, strengthens empathy, and enhances connection. That's why the moments we often remember most aren't tied to things, they're tied to how someone made us feel. A deep talk, a shared silence, an afternoon without distractions. Long after the gift fades, presence remains. Compliments land best when they're spontaneous. A compliment that takes you by surprise often stays with you longer. It feels genuine, a little unexpected, and deeply sincere. That's why compliments land best when they're spontaneous. This idea is rooted in how we process sincerity. Psychologically, we're more likely to believe praise that feels unrehearsed. A compliment that seems rehearsed or timed to impress can feel strategic, like it's trying to earn something. Spontaneous compliments, on the other hand, feel like honest thoughts that surfaced naturally. You see someone solve a tricky problem and say, "That was clever." Or mid-conversation, you pause and say, "You explain things so clearly." These moments resonate because they weren't part of a plan, they were real observations. This ties into perceived authenticity. When a compliment doesn't seem like it's angling for approval or attention, it becomes easier to accept, and timing matters, too. A compliment delivered right after you notice something hits harder than one delayed or scripted. Being spontaneous doesn't mean careless, it means being present. Great compliments often come from simply paying attention. And when people feel truly seen, not just acknowledged out of politeness, they remember it. Because that kind of attention feels rare and real. Check in twice. The second ask matters. In psychology, there's a concept known as emotional masking. When people hide their real feelings to appear strong, composed, or simply to avoid discomfort. "I'm fine" is often a reflex, a quick way to say, "I don't want to talk about it," or "I don't know how to explain it." The first time you ask, "How are you?" most people will give the automatic answer. But when you check in a second time, gently, sincerely, without pressure, sends a deeper message. "I actually care." That second ask can be the difference. Between silence and vulnerability, it's not about prying or demanding someone open up. It's about giving them permission to, if they choose. For example, after someone shrugs off your first question, following up with, "Are you sure you're okay?" Or, if there's more going on, "I'm here," keeps the door open. This matters because it creates psychological safety. The first ask tests the surface. The second shows consistency and real concern. People remember who checked in again. That second moment, subtle as it may seem, tells them they're not invisible. And for someone quietly struggling, that gentle persistence can make it easier to speak, to seek help, or to simply feel less alone. Assume error, never malice. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Your first reaction, probably anger, maybe even the thought, "They did that on purpose." But chances are, they didn't. They just didn't see you. That's the heart of assume error, not malice, a simple yet powerful mindset shift. Psychologically, it's rooted in the fundamental attribution error. Our tendency to blame others' actions on who they are instead of their circumstances. Someone's late. We assume they're careless. They miss a message. They must be ignoring us. In reality, it's often traffic, distraction, stress, normal human slips. Assuming error doesn't mean excusing every behavior or ignoring harmful patterns. It just means making grace your default. Pause before reacting. Say, "Maybe they didn't realize," instead of, "They knew exactly what they were doing." It's a habit of mental restraint that helps avoid unnecessary tension and broken trust. This mindset invites curiosity over confrontation. Most mistakes aren't attacks, they're human errors, and treating every misstep like a personal offense only builds walls. Assuming error first doesn't make you naive, it makes you emotionally intelligent. It's a way to see more clearly, and to respond with empathy instead of escalation. Let one car in. Civilization survives another day. You're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, running late, tension rising. Then someone signals they want to merge. You hesitate. Do you let them in or close the gap? It seems like a small decision, but psychologically, it holds real meaning. Let one car in. Civilization survives another day is a light-hearted way to express a serious truth. Small acts of cooperation sustain the social fabric. This idea connects to pro-social behavior actions made for others' benefit, even with no obvious payoff. Letting a car in doesn't earn you points or praise, but it reinforces a culture of respect. This act triggers empathy-based decision-making. You recognize someone else's need even if it costs you a second or two. It also taps into reciprocity, norms the idea that kindness inspires kindness. Studies show that both seeing and performing small generous acts can lower stress and increase connection. This goes beyond traffic. Holding the door, offering a seat, yielding the floor in a conversation. These aren't just manners. They're micro-investments in shared dignity. Letting one car merge may feel trivial, but psychology sees it as a nudge toward a kinder, more cooperative world, one choice at a time. Voice notes beat texts for complex tone. A simple "sure" in a text can carry 10 different meanings: sarcastic, indifferent, annoyed. The words stay the same, but tone changes everything. That's where voice notes come in. When a message is emotionally layered or timing sensitive, tone is essential. Text, as efficient as it is, strips away the human element. In psychology, this is called paralinguistic communication, the pitch, rhythm, volume, and pace that bring meaning to our words. These subtle vocal cues vanish when we reduce complex emotions to plain text. That's why voice notes make a difference. They restore warmth, nuance, and intent. A sigh before speaking, a pause to collect thoughts, a soft tone to show care. These details shape how your message lands. Especially during tension or vulnerability, hearing someone's voice helps prevent misinterpretation. It also signals effort. It says, "This mattered enough to speak aloud." Not every message needs it, but when stakes are high, emotions are mixed, or timing is delicate, your voice conveys what text often can't. It brings clarity, connection, and presence, all crucial in building understanding, even from a distance. Decline like you'd want to be declined. No one enjoys hearing no, but how it's said makes all the difference. That's the core of decline like you'd want to be declined, a principle rooted in empathy and mutual respect. In psychology, it's connected to social reciprocity, treating others how you'd hope to be treated when roles reverse. A refusal doesn't have to be cold, dismissive, or vague. In fact, a thoughtful no can build trust by showing honesty with care. When someone asks for your time, help, or presence, and you can't say yes, the delivery matters. A flat "I can't" can feel like a personal rejection, but a response like, "Thank you for thinking of me right now, I can't commit, but I'd love to be involved another time," shows respect without over-promising. This applies to all relationships, friends, invitations. Declining with clarity and kindness shows you value the connection, even when setting boundaries. And it helps dismantle people-pleasing habits. Boundaries don't have to feel harsh or guilt-laden. They can be warm, specific, and human. Ultimately, saying no is part of life. But when done with thoughtfulness and empathy, it communicates. More than refusal, it reinforces dignity on both sides. And that's what people remember. Step aside without being asked. You don't need a sign to know when you're in someone's way, a subway exit, in front of a store, or on a narrow sidewalk. Learning to step aside without being asked is one of the simplest yet most telling signs of social intelligence. Psychologists call this prosocial behavior, small actions done for the benefit of others. It's not about grand gestures. It's about recognizing shared space and moving in a way that makes life easier for everyone around you. The skill behind this is situational awareness, noticing your surroundings, how much space you take up, and who might need to get by. When you move without being prompted, you're lifting a mental burden from someone else. They don't have to awkwardly ask, hesitate, or work around you. You've already solved the problem they were silently facing. These unnoticed acts of awareness create something powerful called reciprocal altruism, where kindness inspires kindness. One step aside can spark a ripple of cooperation. It doesn't earn applause, but it matters. These micro-adjustments in behavior are what keep public spaces flowing and socially balanced. Stepping aside isn't about being overly cautious. It's about tuning in. A single gesture can quietly say, "I see you, you matter." And that's what builds a more civil, respectful, shared world, one sidewalk at a time. Learn the lesson before labeling the day bad. You spill your coffee, miss a deadline, argue with someone you love, and by noon the label is sealed. It's just a bad day. But psychology offers a healthier habit. Learn the lesson before labeling the day bad. This mindset helps interrupt a common mental trap called cognitive filtering, focusing on what went wrong and letting it color the whole day. Instead, the practice of cognitive reappraisal encourages you to step back and ask, what can I learn from this? Maybe that conversation didn't go well because of your tone. Maybe rushing led to mistakes. That reflection shifts your focus from judgment to growth. Let's say your presentation flopped. Instead of carrying that failure all day, pause and ask, what could I do differently next time? Prep more, speak slower, clarify my points. That small mental shift turns a bad moment into usable feedback. This change in framing reduces rumination. The habit of replaying failure over and over and builds emotional resilience. A day with a misstep doesn't have to be a ruined day. It can be a lesson in disguise. By choosing reflection over reaction, you create a more balanced view of yourself and of the day. That shift can help you move forward with more clarity and less self-blame. Share clouds as often as sunshine. It's easy to share the good stuff, new jobs, exciting news, funny stories. But when life feels heavy, most people go quiet. That's why it matters to share clouds as often as sunshine. This practice reflects emotional openness, the willingness to share a full range of feelings, not just the positive ones. In a culture that celebrates highlight reels, many people filter what they share, worried they'll be seen as a burden. But that filter creates emotional distance. It sends the message that only success is welcome, and that can leave everyone feeling alone in their struggles. When you say, "Today's been rough," or "I'm just a little off," you're not seeking pity, you're inviting authenticity. And that builds emotional safety. It gives others permission to be real too. This isn't about oversharing or turning every conversation into a therapy session. It's about trusting that your difficult emotions deserve space too. Because if we only share joy, we limit how supported we feel when life gets hard. Psychologically, this habit helps normalize vulnerability, reduce shame, and deepen connection. Sharing the clouds doesn't cancel out the sunshine, it completes the picture. And in that honesty, real connection begins. Coach in private, praise in public. No one enjoys being corrected in front of others, even when the feedback is helpful. But almost everyone appreciates being recognized when others are watching. That's the power of coach in private praise. In public, this practice is rooted in two emotional needs: dignity and recognition. Criticism, even constructive, can trigger a threat response when delivered publicly. It can feel exposing or even humiliating because it activates concerns about status, safety, and social belonging. By coaching privately, you create a space for honest dialogue without embarrassment. Whether you're a manager giving feedback, a parent guiding a child, or a friend offering a gentle correction, private settings preserve trust and self-respect. On the flip side, public praise boosts morale and models what's valued. It gives someone a moment of visible affirmation while inspiring others. When you say, "She handled that client beautifully," in front of a team, it lifts confidence and encourages repeat behavior. Used together, these two habits build psychological safety. Private feedback protects, public praise uplifts, and in any environment where people are growing, that balance creates a foundation for trust, motivation, and long-term success. Don't tease someone who's already shrinking. Some jokes bring people closer, others hit like a quiet slap. Teasing can be a way to bond, but not when someone is already feeling small. That's the heart of don't tease someone who's already shrinking. In social dynamics, context matters more than the joke itself. A playful remark can land fine when someone feels confident and included. But when someone is already feeling exposed, anxious, or unsure, that same joke can amplify their. Psychologically, people who are emotionally depleted are often stuck in a defensive state. Their inner critic is already loud. A jab at their expensive and a gentle one can feel less like fun and more like confirmation of what they fear about themselves. You'll see this in groups. Someone stumbles through a story or makes a small mistake, and instead of support, they're met with laughter. Shoulders tighten. Their voice gets smaller. It's subtle, but it sticks. Good teasing relies on reciprocity. When someone feels seen and safe, they can laugh at themselves. But when someone is already pulling back, emotionally or socially, a joke isn't connection, it's pressure. Empathy means knowing when to ease off, not because people are fragile, but because strength grows in spaces where no one has to. Where armor, the goal isn't to toughen people up, it's to be the reason they don't need to be tough in the first place. If it's not yours, don't take it. If it's private, don't share it. You spot a phone left behind on a table, or someone confides in you with a story told in trust. In both cases, you're at a crossroads. And while the choice may seem simple, psychology says it runs deeper than just morality. It's about boundaries, ownership, and identity. This is known as ownership psychology, the mental framework we use to decide what belongs to us, including not just physical items, but also stories, emotions, and reputations. When someone shares something personal, they're handing you part of their identity. Respecting that is about more than silence. It's about protecting trust. Sharing someone's private story without their consent isn't just gossip, it's a form of control theft. You're taking ownership of something that isn't yours to tell. Likewise, taking an unattended item, even something small, undermines the sense of security we rely on in social spaces. Research shows these violations, emotional or material, leave long-lasting damage in relationships. But when we act with integrity when no one's watching, we reinforce our values. We tell ourselves, I'm someone who respects what isn't mine. And that's the point. Respect isn't just about grand gestures, it's built in these quiet, unglamorous decisions. The ones that shape how others feel around us, and how we feel about ourselves. Apologize without a paragraph. You've hurt someone, maybe with a word, a tone, or a moment of carelessness. Your instinct might be to explain it all, to give context. But psychology says, keep it simple. Apologize without a paragraph. Why? Because the best apologies aren't explanations, they're acknowledgements. A clean, direct, "I'm sorry I hurt you, that wasn't okay," lands more powerfully than "I'm sorry, but I was tired, and you misunderstood what I meant," and the moment you shift into explaining, you start shifting away from the person you hurt. The spotlight moves off them and onto you. It becomes about your intent, not their experience. That doesn't mean context is irrelevant, it just shouldn't come first. Start with owning the impact. Let the other person feel seen before you talk about the why. Even in smaller settings, running late, missing a text-to-short apology shows respect. "Sorry I kept you waiting" is far more meaningful than detailing the traffic. Psychologically, concise apologies are easier to trust. They make room for the other person to respond without having to navigate your justification. Most people don't want a defense. They want to know, do you get it? Do you care? Say that clearly. Say it without the paragraph. Play positive-sum games. Some interactions feel like a competition. Your win is my loss. But life doesn't always need to be a zero-sum game. Instead, aim to play positive-sum games where multiple people can win, and value isn't divided, but created. Take two co-workers on a project. If they fight for credit, one gets ahead while the other loses. But if they collaborate, genuinely share effort and ideas, the result is better. The client wins, the team shines, everyone gains. This mindset shift from "what can I get" to "what can we build" is powerful. It rewires how we show up, how we listen, how we invest in each other. Psychologically, environments that foster mutual gain fuel trust, creativity, and cooperation. When people know they're not competing for scraps, they become more generous, more innovative, and more open. And this applies everywhere: friendships, communities, families. Choosing the path where more than one person can benefit often leads to more sustainable, fulfilling outcomes. Sure, not every situation can be positive-sum. Boundaries are still necessary. But when the opportunity's there, take it. Because building together beats winning alone. Let people arrive at their own speed. Some people jump in right away, open, talkative, present. Others hang back, watching, listening, quietly calibrating. The mistake we often make is expecting everyone to arrive at the same pace. But psychology says, let people arrive at their own speed. Different emotional wiring means different warm-up times. Attachment styles, social anxiety, introversion, these shape how quickly someone feels safe to show up. And when we push, just open up. Why are you so quiet? We often do more harm than good. Pressure doesn't accelerate trust, it delays it. Instead, practice patient presence. Stay nearby, stay kind, stay open without forcing interaction. That silent teammate, they might surprise you in week 3 with the best idea. That quiet friend, they might share something deeply meaningful when they're ready. Psychological safety isn't built on urgency, it's built on space. So notice who's still arriving, and let them do it their way. Because when they finally do show up, it's often deeper, fuller, and more genuine than anything rushed. Say goodbye like it might be remembered. It's easy to wave a hand and say bye over your shoulder, but that small moment might matter more than you think. Psychologists call it the recency effect. We tend to remember the last part of an interaction more vividly than the rest. A careless goodbye can leave someone feeling off, even if everything before it was fine. Saying goodbye is about more than politeness, it's about closure. It signals the emotional tone you leave behind. And whether it's a phone call, a visit, or the end of a relationship, those final moments often linger. This doesn't mean every goodbye has to be dramatic. It means being intentional. A simple "take care, it was great seeing you," or "thanks for today, talk soon," can turn a forgettable exit into a warm memory. Psychologically, these small moments offer emotional punctuation, a sense of completeness. They tell the other person you mattered in this interaction. So the next time you're leaving, don't rush it. Make the goodbye count, because how you leave is often what people carry with them. Treat your future self as a friend you care about. It's easy to leave tasks undone or say, "I'll deal with it later." But in psychology, there's a mindset that makes future planning easier. Treat your future self like someone you care about. This idea, known as future self-continuity, helps bridge the emotional gap between who you are now and who you'll be later. When that connection is strong, people tend to make better choices, not out of guilt, but compassion. Think of it this way: if a close friend had to take over your life tomorrow, your chores, your schedule, your mental clutter, wouldn't you want to make it easier for them? People who view their future self as a stranger tend to procrastinate and act impulsively. But those who see their future self as real take small steps to help, prepping the night before, going to bed early, making healthier decisions. These small acts create sustainable routines. They reduce regret, build consistency, and foster a mindset where self-care becomes a kindness, not a burden. Your future self is you, and you deserve care even tomorrow. Celebrate micro wins. They fuel macro wins. You finish the first paragraph of a report. You say no when you usually say yes. You get out of bed when it feels hard. These aren't minor. In psychology, these micro wins are powerful drivers of momentum. The progress principle explains that motivation grows not from completion, but from seeing evidence that you're moving forward. Each small win becomes a cue to your brain. I'm making progress. It releases dopamine, boosting mood and reinforcing the effort. Whether it's writing a single sentence, hitting send on a tough email, or completing a 5-minute stretch, every step counts. Ignoring these wins creates long stretches of invisible labor, which can make you feel like nothing's happening even when you're building something big. That's why many systems, from fitness apps to productivity tools, are built around tracking and celebrating small steps. They're not gimmicks, they're psychology. Each micro win you acknowledge strengthens your resilience, helping you stick with goals longer. Success isn't just about finishing, it's about noticing the journey as it unfolds. Don't finish their sentence if it costs them courage. When someone is struggling to say something difficult, the instinct to help can take over. You jump in, try to finish their sentence, thinking you're making it easier. But sometimes, that interruption does more harm than help. In psychology, moments of emotional vulnerability move slowly. Pauses, stumbles, and silence are part of the process. People are weighing risk with each word. If you jump in too soon, even with good intentions, you can take away their voice. Instead of feeling supported, they may feel interrupted or overshadowed. Maybe they start with, "I've been thinking that maybe I," and you finish with, "Want to quit your job." But what they were about to say was, "Don't feel like myself anymore." It's not just the words, it's the timing. The pause was the courage. Psychological safety means giving space, not rushing or guessing. Hold the silence. Let them finish. Let them own the moment. Listening isn't just about hearing, it's about honoring the bravery it took to speak. Text when you're late, even by 5 minutes. You're behind, maybe stuck in traffic or caught in a last-minute task. It's only 5 minutes. Still, one quick message can make all the difference. Psychology calls this a micro-signaler, small behavior that shows respect, reliability, and emotional intelligence. When you're late and don't communicate, the person waiting is left wondering, did they forget? Are they still coming? This uncertainty triggers stress. Our brains dislike ambiguity even more than bad news. A simple running 5 minutes late sorry breaks the uncertainty and signals, I see your time and it matters. In modern relationships, punctuality is tied to trust. Small gestures like this one reinforce your reliability. And in casual settings, coffee with a friend, a group call, a walk, those small texts matter even more. They tell the other person, the plan may have shifted, but the connection hasn't. A few seconds to send, a lasting message, you're not forgotten. I respect your time. Too many yes becomes self-betrayal. You say yes to one more task, one more favor, one more obligation, even though you feel stretched thin. It feels kind in the moment, but repeated often enough that kindness turns inward into neglect. In psychology, this is tied to people-pleasing behaviors. The desire to avoid conflict or disappointment leads you to ignore your own limits. At first, it seems generous, but over time, unchecked yeses erode your energy, blur your boundaries, and disconnect you from what matters. Self-betrayal doesn't arrive with a single big choice. It sneaks in through dozens of small ones, skipping rest, shelving your priorities, saying yes out of habit, not intention. This doesn't mean you shouldn't be generous or flexible. It means your yes should come from choice, not guilt. When your calendar, energy, or values say no, honoring that matters. Setting boundaries isn't selfish shit, self-respect. It teaches others to value your time, and it teaches you that you're allowed to protect it, because a yes that honors your needs becomes a real yes, and that's what makes generosity sustainable. Humor that lands on you first never hurts others. You trip in public, awkward, visible, cringe-worthy, but then you say, and that's why I never auditioned for Dancing with the Stars. Laughter follows not at you, but with you. That's the psychology behind laughing at yourself before anyone else can. It's called self-deprecating humor, and when used well, it's not about putting yourself down, it's about diffusing tension and showing resilience. In psychological terms, this humor reduces embarrassment and builds instant connection. When you own your awkwardness with a bit of wit, you send a message, I can take it. It reassures people they don't need to feel uncomfortable on your behalf. Social tension drops. Everyone breathes easier, especially in moments of public discomfort. Mispronouncing a word, fumbling tech in a meeting, or spilling water. A quick, light joke shows emotional agility. It proves you're not fragile, but it's a fine line. The aim isn't to be self-insulting or mask insecurity. The point is to steer the moment before it steers you. Laughter, in this case, isn't a way to shrink, it's a way to stay present and human. And the result? People often forget the stumble, but remember how gracefully you handled it. That's emotional intelligence in action, turning what could have been shame into a shared, even charming, human moment. Keep your bag off the seat someone else could use. You walk into a crowded train or waiting room and see it. A perfectly good seat taken by a backpack. No one's using it, but no one else can either. This small act speaks volumes. The psychology behind keeping your bag off a seat someone else could use is all about spatial awareness and nonverbal signals. In shared spaces, people constantly scan their surroundings for cues. What's acceptable? what's welcoming. Leaving your bag where a person could sit sends a subtle but powerful message: this space is mine, not yours. Psychologists call this territorial behavior, a natural instinct to stake out space in uncertain or crowded environments. But in public, those instincts need to be tempered with empathy. Often, it's not even about comfort, it's about avoiding closeness or interaction. The bag becomes a barrier. Research shows people pick up on these signals when they see someone spreading out, avoiding eye contact, or using objects to block proximity. It triggers feelings of exclusion. Removing your bag is more than making room. It says, I acknowledge you. This space belongs to all of us. That one act of social consideration changes the tone of a space from competitive to cooperative. It welcomes rather than walls off. In a world where kindness is often silent, moving your bag can be louder than words and much more meaningful. Let absence teach you as much as presence. The biggest lessons sometimes come from what's missing. A text that doesn't arrive. A voice you used to hear every day that goes quiet. In psychology, absence is not just a void, it's information. Let absence teach you as much as presence. Means tuning into the patterns that disappear and recognizing the emotional weight they carry. Our brains are wired to notice consistency. So when someone who used to respond right away suddenly doesn't, or a regular moment in your routine vanishes, it sends a signal. That's where expectancy violation theory comes in. We subconsciously build expectations of how people behave. And when they deviate even silently, we notice, reassess, and often revalue. Absence highlights dependencies we didn't know we had. It shows us who mattered more than we realized. But it also reveals the reverse: what doesn't ache when it's gone. That's just as important. It invites recalibration. In relationships, habits, routines, when something slips away, the echo it leaves behind can tell you whether it nourished you or just filled space. It's not about overanalyzing everyone who pulls back. It's about awareness. Not every absence is abandonment. Some are just transitions. But tuning in to what's no longer there can help you reconnect more intentionally with what you do need, and who truly shows up without being asked. A pun at the right moment is diplomacy. The tension is thick team stress, deadline pressure, tight shoulders, and louder voices. Then someone breaks the mood with, let's not spreadsheet ourselves thin. It lands, not because it's a brilliant joke, but because it arrived at just the right second. That's the psychology of a well-timed pun. Wordplay, when carefully placed, isn't just clever, it's calming. Psychologists call this affiliative humor that connects, softens, and signals emotional safety without targeting anyone. In conflict-heavy or tense moments, this kind of levity acts as a pressure valve. It resets the emotional climate. Instead of escalating, it invites people to re-engage with less edge. From a neurological standpoint, puns activate a small reward loop. They create an unexpected twist, then resolve it. That moment of mental surprise, followed by recognition, triggers dopamine, which reduces defensiveness and boosts mood. And when tension is rising, even a tiny mood shift can change a conversation's direction. Timing is critical. A joke dropped too early can seem flippant. Too late, and it falls flat. But in the sweet spot, just before frustration boils over, pun becomes more than comedy. It's diplomacy through humanity. It reminds everyone we're allowed to lighten up. And sometimes, soft power like that works better than any formal intervention could. Pain isn't a contest. Never one-up vulnerability. Someone opens up quietly, shakily about something painful. You want to connect. You start sharing your own story. But suddenly, the moment shifts. Now, the focus is on your pain, not theirs. That's the danger of one-upping vulnerability. It's not always intentional, but it's real. When someone shares their struggle, they're offering emotional exposure. That moment is about them. Jumping in with a bigger or more dramatic example as a way to relate can feel like a competition. Instead of comfort, it causes disconnection. For instance, someone says, "I've been feeling anxious." You reply, "Oh yeah. Mine got so bad I couldn't even get out of bed last year." While it may be true, the timing pulls the emotional spotlight away from their experience. Now they feel small or unheard. Psychology shows that vulnerability thrives in safe, validating spaces, not competitive ones. Holding that space doesn't mean saying nothing. It means listening without turning the moment. Respond with presence. That sounds really tough. I'm glad you told me. This keeps the focus where it belongs, the person who risked opening up. Later, when the space feels mutual, there may be time to share. But first, let them land. Giving someone those few uninterrupted moments without being compared or outmatched can build more trust than any story ever could. Real empathy starts with quiet space, not louder stories. Be the one who notices. In a crowded space, someone's quieter than usual. A coworker forgets their usual coffee. A friend doesn't reply. Most overlook it, but someone notices. That's what this is about. Being the one who notices, not a grand gesture. It's emotional awareness, tuning to subtle shifts in tone, behavior, or energy. In psychology, this aligns with social sensitivity, the ability to sense what's unspoken. People rarely say when they're struggling. They deflect, hide, or downplay. Noticing is gently naming that space, offering presence before asking for explanations. It's not intrusive. It's caring. It looks like, "Hey, just checking in," or "Want to step out for a walk." Not solutions, just presence. These small acknowledgements build psychological safety in relationships. Where people worry they're a burden. Being noticed without asking dissolves emotional loneliness and builds trust. In workplaces, this strengthens teamwork. In friendships, it forges deeper bonds. You don't need to be perfect or say the ideal words. You just need to consistently show up, especially when someone is retreating. Often, noticing is the first act of care, the quiet bridge back to connection. Confidence is comfort with imperfection. You might think confidence is perfect posture, flawless answers, or getting every detail right. But lasting confidence is something else entirely. It's being okay when things don't go perfectly. It's being comfortable with imperfection. This concept reflects psychological flexibility, the ability to stay calm and grounded even when mistakes happen. Confident people aren't flawless. They're just not shaken by minor missteps. Picture a speaker who mispronounces a word, laughs, and keeps going. Or a manager who admits not knowing everything, yet leads with clarity. These moments show strength, not weakness. In psychology, this aligns with self-efficacy, the belief in one's ability to navigate challenges. Confidence stems not from control, but from adaptability. When you trust your ability to recover, you're more willing to try, to risk, and to grow. You speak up more, learn faster, and resist the fear of failure. Confidence, culturally, is mistaken for loud certainty, but often it's quiet calm. It's staying steady through feedback, uncertainty, or missteps. It doesn't demand perfection. It grows through realness. That's why true confidence lasts. It thrives in the cracks, not despite them, but because of them. Representation is invitation. Widen the lens. Who's shown matters, who's missing matters too. Representation isn't just about visibility, it's about psychological belonging. When someone sees themselves reflected in a teacher, leader, or character, the message is clear. You belong here. In psychology, this touches on social identity. Theory or sense of self is shaped by groups we identify with. Without reflection, it's harder to see your place in the narrative. That's why a child lights up seeing a teacher who shares their culture. It's why diverse workplaces matter. It tells people success isn't reserved for one background. Underrepresentation can create stereotype threat, a quiet but powerful pressure that hinders performance and increases self-doubt. When the room reflects a broader spectrum, confidence grows and focus sharpens. Widening the lens doesn't mean tokenism. It means designing stories, systems, and spaces that reflect everyone, not just the most common or historically privileged. Whether in classrooms, media, leadership, or marketing, representation sends a signal. It says, you're not an exception. You're part of the picture. Every choice who's featured, who's heard, who's invited either builds a barrier or extends a hand. And the more the lens includes, the more open the invitation becomes. Don't meet someone's softness with structure. When someone shares something raw or vulnerable, the impulse might be to help, to fix, to offer a checklist. Have you tried? You should. But when openness is met with structure, it can feel like a door slamming shut. They're not always asking for advice. They're asking, is this a safe place? Offering solutions to fast can signal control, not care. In psychology, this relates to emotional attunement, the ability to sense what support is needed beneath the surface. When someone speaks softly or shows emotion, their nervous system is seeking co-regulation, not correction. The response match their energy. Mirror the softness. That sounds tough. Thanks for sharing. Let presence lead before problem solving begins. This builds trust. It says, I'm with you here, not I'm trying to move you past this. Some people are wired for logic, others for empathy. But in moments of vulnerability, it's not about being efficient. It's about being kind. Because not every quiet truth is a cry for help. Sometimes it's just a question. Will you hold this gently? Or will you try to fix what I haven't even finished sharing? Decline like you'd want to be declined. Nobody enjoys hearing no, but how you say it can change everything. That's the heart of decline, like you'd want to be declined. Psychologically, it's rooted in empathy and social reciprocity. Others, how you'd hope to be treated in reverse. A sharp no, I can't, can feel like personal rejection. But a thoughtful reply, thanks for thinking of me. I can't commit right now, but I appreciate the ask, preserves the relationship. This kind of decline builds trust. It says, I value you, even if I can't say yes. This applies to invitations, favors, work requests. Specificity and warmth go a long way. And when you decline with kindness, you teach others how you hope they'll decline your requests too. It sets the tone for honest communication. In behavioral psychology, this reduces people-pleasing tendencies. It shows boundaries aren't walls, they're ways to be clear and kind. Ultimately, a compassionate no still says no, but it leaves dignity intact. And that's what people remember. Show appreciation even when no one's watching. Some of the strongest thank yous are the quietest. They're not performative, they're real. That's the power of appreciation, even when no one's watching. In psychology, this links to reinforcement theory. What we acknowledge tends to repeat, but the audience doesn't always matter. Practicing gratitude, privately writing it down, saying it silently still rewires your brain. It shifts focus from lack to presence, tuning you into what's working instead of what's missing. People who express appreciation regularly, even in solitude, tend to experience greater emotional well-being. It cultivates empathy and compassion. You notice more. You value more. Appreciation doesn't require a stage. Thanking the janitor, the teammate who does invisible work, the friend who always listens, whether or not they hear, it still shapes how you show up. It builds internal character. Gratitude isn't about being loud. It's about being genuine. And even in silence, it holds power. Imagine invisible traffic lines in every hallway. You walk through a hallway. There are no signs, yet you instinctively move to one side. Adjust your speed, avoid collision. That's the unspoken order we follow on invisible traffic system. In psychology, this falls under behavioral norms, shared unwritten rules that help social groups function. We mentally map lanes in tight spaces, break them, and others subtly notice. Not because they're rigid, but because we're wired for coordination. These invisible lines aren't fixed, they shift based on culture or context. In countries with left-side driving, hallway flow often mirrors that. In schools or offices, it adapts to architecture and movement patterns. This is behavioral mimicry. It reduces social friction and prevents chaos. But more than that, it's a tiny way we acknowledge others. We're not alone in the space. Imagining those lines, pausing, veering slightly, giving room isn't just logistical. It's respectful. It's a reminder, even in small, shared moments, we can make things smoother, kinder, more human. Mirror feelings first. Fixes can wait. Someone says, "I'm just so tired," and you jump in with advice. Sleep more, take a walk, plan a trip. The instinct is to help, but what they likely needed first, to feel heard. Mirror feelings first. Fixes can wait means, before offering solutions, reflect the emotion. That sounds exhausting. You've been carrying a lot. It's not robotic repetition. It's attuned acknowledgement. This lowers emotional resistance. When someone feels seen, they relax. Their brain opens to possibility. Solutions come later. This mirrors the need for emotional validation, the basic human need. It helps people regulate, feel safe, and process. Jumping straight to advice can feel like a dismissal, even if it's well-intentioned. Taking a pause to mirror creates space. It tells the other person, your feelings matter. And that simple pause, it can change the entire direction of a conversation. What you choose when no one's looking. What do you do when no one sees? Put the cart back. Turn off the light. Hold the elevator. These tiny decisions reflect something deeper, your values in action. Psychologists call this private morality. Your choices align with your principles, even without praise or punishment. That's where integrity lives. It's driven by intrinsic motivation, not external reward, but internal compass. When social eyes vanish, who are you? Researchers find people behave more prosocially when watched. But when the spotlight fades, some shift, others remain. The difference, self-concept clarity, the extent to which you know and live your values. It's not about big heroic acts. It's the quiet ones, the unthanked kindness, the unseen care. These choices build habits. Habits build identity, so public decisions may show the world who you are, but private ones, they tell you. Use emoji to soften, not to dodge clarity. A message says, "Let's talk." Another says, "Let's talk." Same words, different feel. That's the subtle strength of emoji. Used well, they add tone, soften tension, bridge flat text. Psychologically, emoji help compensate for missing cues, facial expressions, voice, gesture. They add warmth. In digital spaces, they reduce misinterpretation. A single emoji can transform how a message is received, but overuse or misplacement, that creates confusion. Avoiding hard truths by hiding behind smiley faces can feel evasive. It blurs rather than clarifies. Emoji aren't substitutes for honesty, they're complements. Use them to add tone, not mask meaning. A thumbs up, a smile, a heart when placed thoughtfully support transparency, not avoid it. They say, "I'm human. This message has care." So, soften, yes, but stay clear. Emoji are punctuation with personality. Let them enhance, not distort. Own the typo, then fix it publicly. You hit send, then you spot it. The typo, your heart drops. Do you ignore it? Hope it slides by? Or do you own it? Own the typo, then fix it publicly is about more than grammar. It's about transparency. In psychology, this aligns with impression management, the way we shape how others see us. Ironically, acknowledging small mistakes, especially with calm or humor, builds trust. It shows self-awareness and humility. We saw it, we fixed it. That says we care about accuracy more than ego. Whether it's an email, a post, a presentation, correcting an error openly signals maturity. It reflects psychological flexibility, the ability to adapt without defensiveness. People don't lose respect when you admit a mistake. They often gain it, because being real, even in error, is more relatable than pretending perfection. So next time you see the typo, own it, correct it, keep moving. That's not weakness, that's leadership. Design rooms and conversations with ramps. Not everyone enters a space ready to jump in. Some need more time, more clarity, more warmth. That's where ramps come in. In architecture, ramps offer access without needing to ask. In conversation, they do the same. Psychologically, this honors different processing speeds, comfort levels, and social thresholds. Designing with ramps means easing people into interaction, starting a meeting with a check-in, sharing an agenda ahead of time, beginning a group chat with light tone before deep asks. Physically, it could mean better signage, softer lighting, inclusive seating. Socially, it means making space before demanding participation. It's not about slowing things down, it's about making them accessible. Inclusion isn't just about who's invited, it's about who feels safe enough to engage. Ramps make that possible. In any room, digital or physical, they say, you don't have to leap. We've made a path for you to walk in. That's not lowering standards, that's raising dignity. Let people grieve without tidying it. Grief doesn't arrive neatly, it doesn't move on schedule or stick to polite boundaries. But when someone is grieving, our instinct is often to tidy it, to comfort, distract, or offer a silver lining. The core of let people grieve without tidying it is this: allow grief to be as chaotic as it really is. In psychology, grief isn't a task list, it's a deeply personal process that unfolds in waves, not stages. Trying to tidy someone's grief by reframing it or offering quick comfort can make them feel even more alone. Phrases like "they're in a better place" or "at least you had time" may be well-meaning, but often signal I'm uncomfortable with your pain. Letting grief be messy means allowing someone to cry without comment, to go silent without pressure, to stay sad without a schedule. It's about being present without fixing or fast-forwarding. If a friend loses someone or ends a relationship, you don't need the perfect words. Just be there, say I'm here, and actually stay there. That presence becomes a powerful anchor. Grief often defies language, so what helps most is simply not making it smaller or tidier than it really is. Give people the freedom to feel all of it, and know you won't pull away. That's how we truly support healing. Let them cancel, no guilt required. Plans fall through, someone texts to say they're not up for it after all. And though you understand, part of you still feels let down. But here's the truth: let them cancel, no guilt required isn't just kindness. It's emotional intelligence. Our need for connection is real, but so is the need to rest or recalibrate. When someone cancels, especially due to stress or emotional overload, they're not rejecting you, they're choosing honesty over pretending. If you meet that honesty with guilt or irritation, even subtle, you teach them to override their needs next time. That chips away at emotional safety. The opposite is letting people cancel without consequences. It builds trust. It shows that your relationship isn't about perfect attendance, but mutual care, and many who cancel already carry guilt. They're not inconsiderate. They're likely conditioned to fear disappointing others. Meeting them with calm and reassurance helps break that pattern. You can still feel disappointed, but keep it to yourself. Don't make them hold your feelings. Flexibility is a gift, and in the long run, it nurtures real connection, because the strongest bonds aren't built on obligation. They're built on the freedom to be real, even when that means stepping back. Ask if they want advice or just space. Someone starts venting about a rough day before they finish. You've already got solutions lined up. But here's where emotional intelligence comes in. Ask if they want advice or just space. When people open up, it's not always an invitation to fix. Often it's a need to be heard. In psychology, giving people choice in how they process emotions is key. Simply asking, "Do you want advice or just to vent?" changes everything. It shifts the moment from assumption to support, from reaction to respect. That small question gives them agency over the conversation and signals that their needs lead the way. For instance, if a friend says work is exhausting, jumping in with you should take a break might feel helpful, but could miss the point instead. Try want to talk more or just get it out. That soft opening allows them to steer, and when people steer, they feel safer. Empathy isn't just about feeling with someone, it's about letting them stay in the driver's seat. Offering this choice also reduces miscommunication. It keeps support from feeling like pressure. Over time, this one habit builds deeper trust, because it proves you're not just there to fix, you're there to follow their lead in how they heal. Protect what's sacred, even when it's subtle. Some moments don't look sacred on the surface, but they are a quiet morning ritual, an unspoken routine, a small joke between friends. These things might not be flashy, but they hold weight. That's why protect what's sacred, even when it's subtle, matters. In psychology, this speaks to meaning making. We attach emotional value to routines and gestures others might miss. When these are interrupted, overlooked, or minimized, it can feel like something personal was dismissed. Take the person who always calls during their walk home. It's not dramatic, but it's grounding. Or a colleague's specific desk setup, not for efficiency, but for calm. These aren't just habits. They're anchors. Protecting them means honoring what soothes us or connects us even when it's quiet. It's about giving small rituals room to live. Maybe it's rescheduling a call to preserve a friend's evening routine, or pausing before interrupting someone's solo moment. These sacreds say this matters without needing big words, and when others respect them, it deepens connection over time. Because in a noisy world, the quiet things we protect often matter the most. Don't solve pain before you've heard it. Someone opens up, "I've been so overwhelmed lately." And before they finish, you're already suggesting fixes. Sleep more, plan better, try this app, but don't solve pain before you've heard it is about timing and trust. In psychology, we know emotional validation must come before problem solving. Jumping in too fast can feel like dismissal. Even with good intent, it may signal, "I'm uncomfortable with your pain, let's move past it." But most people don't start with the whole story, they start small. If you interrupt or advise too early, they may shut down fully. Instead say, "That sounds tough, do you want to talk more?" That pause gives room for the deeper stuff to surface. It shows that you care about their feelings, not just the fix. Once someone feels heard, their brain becomes more open to ideas. Advice lands better after validation. It's not about withholding help, it's about pacing. The moment people need to feel seen before they can hear suggestions. When support follows understanding, it's far more effective, because it doesn't outrun what someone's still learning how to say. Pronounce names correctly, even if you have to ask twice. A name isn't just a label. It's someone's first identity. Pronounce names correctly, even if you have to ask twice, speaks to a deeper truth in psychology, respect and belonging. Saying a name right, especially in diverse environments, sends a powerful message. I see you, I care. When a name is mispronounced or avoided altogether, it can unintentionally signal that effort isn't worth it. And over time, that can erode someone's confidence or sense of safety. Names carry culture, history, meaning. Flattening them for ease sometimes feels like erasing part of someone's story. That's why asking again, practicing and trying matters. It's not about getting it perfect right away. It's about showing effort and listening, whether it's a classroom, meeting, or group setting. Those few extra seconds build trust and inclusion, because no one wants their identity stumbled over again and again. For many, it's a daily burden. When you take time to learn their name and say it right, you're not just addressing them, you're including them, and that small act of recognition matters more than you think. Zoom out. Will this matter in 5 years? You spill coffee before a meeting, you forget a deadline. You say the wrong thing in a moment of stress, it feels huge, but zoom out. Will this matter in 5 years offers a vital psychological reset known as temporal distancing. This strategy helps reduce anxiety by reframing time. When we imagine how something will feel years from now, we shrink its emotional power. The brain, under stress, narrows its focus. That's why tiny setbacks feel enormous. But when you take a breath and mentally step back, the urgency often fades. That embarrassing moment today, forgotten by next week. That missed opportunity, a blip in a bigger path. Practicing this kind of perspective taking helps build resilience. It teaches your brain to sort discomfort from crisis, to treat slip-ups as temporary, not identity. This isn't about ignoring emotion, it's about contextualizing it. And with repetition, this shift becomes a habit, one that keeps you grounded even in chaos. Because very few things are as big as they seem in the moment, especially not when viewed from 5 years down the line. Introduce people by what they share, not what they lack. You're introducing friends. This is Priyoshi doesn't drink. Or here's Sam, he's not from around here. It seems casual, but it frames someone by absence. Introduce people by what they share, not what they lack, is about social framing. In psychology, how we introduce people shapes how they're perceived. Leading with what someone lacks sets them apart, subtly labels them as other instead. Opening with shared interests, like Priya loves hiking or Sam's a big jazz fan, creates common ground. It invites curiosity, not distance. This matters more than we think. People unconsciously pick up on framing bias, a shortcut that colors, how they engage, introductions that lead with difference, even harmless seeming. One scan makes someone feel like they're already outside the circle, but when we highlight connection points, we're creating a bridge. We're saying you belong here too. It's not about ignoring differences, it's about choosing a starting line that draws people in, because the way we frame others, especially in first impressions, can either open a door or build a wall. Let's choose the door. Curate memories, not just milestones. Graduations, weddings, promotions, milestones mark what happened, but memories tell us how it felt. That's the heart of Curate Memories, not just milestones. In psychology, we know the brain stores emotional moments more than calendar ones. This is called the reminiscence bump. We tend to recall vivid, emotionally charged experiences long after we've forgotten the big events. A dinner with close friends might outlast the memory of a formal banquet. Spontaneous trip may leave a deeper mark than a perfectly planned vacation. The difference is emotional presence, being mentally and emotionally engaged in a moment while it happens, not just photographing it, but living it. That's intentional encoding, and it shapes how we remember our lives. In a culture driven by achievement, it's easy to chase milestones and miss meaning, but research shows emotional richness contributes more to lifelong fulfillment than achievement alone. Curating memories means slowing down, noticing small moments, and storing them because they mattered, not because they were scheduled over time. It's not the events we list that shape our story, it's the moments we felt fully alive. Stay until the story finishes. Someone starts sharing something hard, maybe they're halting, emotional, unsure. Halfway through, your phone buzzes or your mind wanders. You nod, but you're not really there. Stay until the story finishes is a call for presence, not just patience. In psychology, when someone shares something vulnerable, they're testing the space. They're asking, is this safe? Will you stay with me through this, or will you pull away? Emotional stories rarely come out cleanly. They arrive in pauses and tangents and almosts. Interrupting, even silently, sends the message, this story isn't worth full attention. But staying means holding eye contact, nodding, waiting. It might be just a few seconds longer, but it tells the speaker, I'm here for all of it, not just the easy parts. Psychologically, this builds trust. It says, your feelings are safe here, and people remember that far more than your advice. Holding space helps them process at their pace, without fear of being rushed or misunderstood. Often, the most honest part of a story comes right after the moment most people tune out. Stay through that pause, through that silence. That's where real connection begins. Spot the single player in the multiplayer lobby. You're in a group, everyone's vibing, light banter, shared memes, quick replies, but one person keeps sending off-topic rants or monologues. That's the single player in the multiplayer lobby. In psychology, this highlights social attunement, the ability to match energy and rhythm in group settings. When someone dominates a shared space with solo energy, it breaks the flow. It's not always intentional. Sometimes it's anxiety or excitement, but it often comes across as egocentric communication when someone stays focused on their world, not the shared one. Spotting it isn't about shaming. It's about noticing when group dynamics tilt, one person talking too long in meetings, one hijacking stories in a chat. These moments create friction because smooth group interaction relies on turn-taking and shared awareness. If one person plays by solo rules, everyone else adjusts or disengages. The solution isn't exile, it's gentle redirection. Remind the group it's a multiplayer space, or for room, but with balance, because harmony in a group doesn't require everyone to be the same, just everyone remembering they're not alone at the controls. Replace let me know with a specific offer. When someone's having a hard time, it's natural to want to help, so we say, let me know if you need anything. It sounds thoughtful, but it rarely leads to action. That's because, in moments of stress, vague offers feel more like pressure than support. The psychology behind this comes down to cognitive load, the mental effort required to process, plan, and make decisions when people are overwhelmed. Even simple tasks, like figuring out what kind of help to ask for, can feel exhausting. So when you say, "Let me know," the intention is kind, but the burden shifts back onto them to figure out how to respond. Replacing that phrase with a specific offer lowers the barrier. It turns support from something abstract into something they can actually use. For example, instead of saying, "Let me know if you need help," say, "I can bring dinner Tuesday night, would that help?" Or, "I'm free Friday, do you want me to take the kids for a few hours?" These offers work better because they require less decision making. The person doesn't have to scan through options or feel awkward about asking. All they need to do is accept or not. Either way, it gives them back some energy. This idea also taps into proactive empathy, a type of support where you anticipate someone's needs instead of waiting for them to ask. It shows you're not just available, you're paying attention. Offering something concrete is one of the simplest ways to make kindness more effective. It turns well-meaning words into something useful, and when someone is already doing their best to stay afloat, removing just one decision from their plate can feel like real relief. Merge like a zipper, not a joust. You've probably been there. Two lanes merging into one, and everyone either speeds up to cut ahead or slams the brakes to avoid collision. But there's a smoother way, and it's not just about driving, it's about how we navigate shared space, whether on the road, in a workplace, or in everyday life. The idea is simple: merge like a zipper, not a joust. In traffic psychology, this is called zipper merging, and it's not just polite, it's efficient. When each car takes turns at the merge point, it reduces congestion and frustration, but the psychology behind it reflects something deeper. How we manage fairness, cooperation, and social flow. People often treat merging as a contest, racing to be first, or blocking others out. That mindset taps into competitive social dynamics, where we see limited space or opportunity as something to guard or conquer. But psychology shows that cooperation, even in small interactions, increases trust and reduces stress. The zipper model relies on mutual awareness. Each side gives a little, and that's what makes it work. Not dominance, but reciprocal concession. It applies to conversations. To think of a group discussion where people alternate speaking instead of one person monopolizing the airtime, or a meeting where contributions flow because people feel heard rather than overridden. Merging like a zipper is a reminder that systems, whether mechanical or social, run better when everyone understands timing, respect, and shared movement. It's not about slowing down or giving up your space, it's about syncing with others, so no one has to fight just to belong. And that small shift on the road or in a room makes everything run smoother, not because one side wins, but because both sides move forward together. Don't interrupt joy with skepticism. When someone's eyes light up, talking about a new idea, a plan, or a small win, they're sharing more than just information, they're inviting you into their excitement. Don't interrupt joy with skepticism is a reminder to be careful with how we respond to other people's enthusiasm. It's easy to jump in with questions, concerns, or caveats, and often it comes from a good place, wanting to be realistic, helpful, or protective. But in that moment, those reactions can feel more like resistance than support. Joy is fragile, especially in its early stages. When someone shares something that makes them feel alive, they're in a vulnerable state. Cutting that down with a doubtful "Are you sure that'll work?" or a dismissive "That's been done before" can feel like a splash of cold water on a warm moment. This doesn't mean abandoning critical thinking. There's a time for questions, but early joy, especially the kind people share freely, isn't always asking for feedback. It's asking for a witness when you respond with shared energy, even a small smile or "that's awesome." You help build emotional safety, and that safety encourages openness, creativity, and deeper trust. Consider a kid excitedly explaining a wild invention. The worst thing you can do is immediately correct the physics. Adults are no different. We still need space to dream before we edit. The psychology is simple. Joy fuels motivation. Interrupting it with doubt too early can shut someone down before they've even started, so let the joy breathe. There's room later for reality checks, but first meet the moment where it is alive, excited, and hopeful. Lead with questions, not conclusions. You're in a conversation and something feels off. Maybe a comment lands wrong or the other person sounds distant. Without even thinking, your mind starts building a story about their attitude, their motives, or what they must be thinking. It happens fast. And it often feels true, but it's not always accurate. Lead with questions, not conclusions, is about slowing that process down. In psychology, we tend to make what's called attributions, mental shortcuts, that explain other people's behavior. The problem is we usually assume intent based on limited information, and those assumptions can derail communication before it really begins. Instead of saying, "You're mad at me, aren't you?" a question-first approach sounds more like, "Did I say something that came out wrong?" It doesn't accuse, it invites. That small difference can turn a tense exchange into a chance for clarity. This works especially well in relationships, personal, professional, or otherwise. If a coworker misses a deadline, the reflex might be to assume laziness or disinterest, but leading with a question, "Is there something that got in the way?" opens the door for context you might not have considered. Asking first shows that you're prioritizing understanding over judgment. It also lowers defensiveness in the person you're talking to. When people feel safe from blame, they're more likely to be honest, and the conversation becomes productive rather than reactive. This shift doesn't require a dramatic change in behavior, just a habit of pausing before labeling. Replace assumptions with curiosity. That one habit can make difficult conversations smoother and good conversations even more meaningful. Hold the elevator even if you're in a rush. You're stepping into an elevator. You're late, the doors are closing, and just as they begin to shut, someone rounds the corner. You have a choice: press the open button or let it slide shut. Holding the elevator, even when you're in a rush, is a small act, but it reveals a lot about how we balance personal urgency with social empathy. Psychologically, this taps into what's known as pro-social behavior, actions intended to benefit others, even at a slight cost to ourselves. What makes this moment interesting is the tension. You're not being asked for much, just a second or two. Yet your brain, primed for efficiency and urgency, might resist. Social psychology shows that when we feel rushed, our capacity for empathy shrinks. The famous Good Samaritan experiment revealed that people in a hurry are far less likely to help others, even when the need is clear. But resisting that instinct, choosing to pause, to make eye contact, to hold the elevator, restores a small piece of social trust. It shows that speed doesn't have to override kindness, and it builds something called moral elevation, a term psychologists use to describe the warm, inspired feeling we get when we witness or perform an altruistic act. From a practical standpoint, you're still on the same ride. You're still heading to the same floor, but for that one other person, your pause might mean not being late, not feeling excluded, not being left behind. Moments like this make the invisible threads of cooperation a little more visible. They say, "We're in this together," even if it's just a lift between floors. Don't ask heavy questions when the credits are rolling. You're walking someone to their car or wrapping up a phone call, and just as they're about to leave, you drop a deep question, something they weren't expecting, something that clearly needs time, but the moment's already closing. Now they have to choose, reopen the conversation or walk away feeling unresolved. The idea behind "don't ask heavy questions when the credits are rolling" is about emotional timing. In psychology, people tend to mentally transition when they know something is ending. Their focus starts shifting to what's next, their next destination, task, or mental state dropping. A big or emotional topic during that shift can backfire. It's not that the question is wrong, it's that the moment can't hold the weight of it. When someone says, "I should head out," their brain begins winding down. That's when energy levels dip, attention narrows, and emotional bandwidth shrinks. Introducing a serious topic in that state can feel abrupt and overwhelming. For example, if a friend is putting on their coat and you suddenly say, "Do you ever think you'll forgive your parents?" You've changed the emotional setting without warning. They're no longer in a space to engage, even if the question matters. This happens at work too. At the end of meetings, or just before signing off a call, throwing in a critical point or a personal concern can make it harder for others to respond thoughtfully. It catches them mid-transition. Good communication doesn't just depend on content. It depends on timing, saving big topics for the middle of the conversation when both people are still. Present and focused creates space for depth, because heavy questions deserve attention, and attention needs the right conditions to show up. Let someone stay mad without fixing it. When someone's upset, the urge to fix it kicks in fast. We want to calm them down, talk it out, or move things along, but not every emotion needs a repair sometimes. The most supportive thing you can do is let someone stay mad without trying to make it disappear. The psychology behind this centers on emotional processing. Anger, like any strong emotion, has a purpose. It signals a boundary, a sense of injustice, or a deep frustration. When we rush to smooth it over by offering solutions, minimizing it, or asking them to calm down, we can unintentionally invalidate what they're feeling. Letting someone stay mad doesn't mean agreeing with them, it means respecting their right to feel what they feel. Emotions are not switches, they take time to settle. Trying to force someone out of anger too quickly usually leads to resistance or shutdown, not resolution. Take a close relationship like a friend or partner. If they're venting about a tough day or an argument, jumping in with logic, "It's not a big deal," or "just try to let it go," can make them feel dismissed. But staying present, even if they're still angry, sends a different message. "I can handle this." You don't have to censor yourself psychologically. This helps build emotional resilience and relational trust. It shows that people don't need to manage your comfort when they're upset. They can move through anger without fearing judgment, conflict, or abandonment. Giving someone permission to be mad without rushing them toward resolution doesn't mean you're passive, it means you're patient. And that patience can be what allows the emotion to run its course, so it doesn't get buried, redirected, or turned into something harder to reach later. Don't ask what's wrong if you won't sit with the answer. When someone looks upset, it's easy to ask what's wrong. It sounds caring, and sometimes it is. But if you're not prepared to stay present for the full answer, that question can do more harm than good. The idea behind "don't ask what's wrong if you won't sit with the answer" is about emotional availability in psychology. This links to emotional responsiveness, your ability to not just notice distress, but to engage with it in a way that feels safe and supportive to the other person. Asking what's wrong opens a door. If the other person walks through it, if they start to share something difficult and you change the subject, look away, or respond with quick advice, the result can feel invalidating. It says, "I wanted the short version, not the real one." This happens often in fast-paced environments. At work, someone asks out of habit, not readiness. In friendships, people mean well, but they're distracted or uncomfortable with vulnerability. The result is that people learn to shut down, answering with "I'm fine." Even when they're not, a more mindful approach means only asking if you're truly ready to listen. That doesn't mean having the perfect response. It just means being willing to stay in the moment, even if the conversation gets messy or emotional. Sometimes that's just nodding, sometimes it's saying, "Thanks for telling me." That sounds really tough psychologically. This helps build emotional trust, a sense that sharing won't lead to discomfort, awkwardness, or being brushed aside, and trust is what encourages people to speak honestly in the first place. If you create space for someone to talk, be ready to hold it, because for many people, finally answering that question takes more effort than it seems. And how you respond shapes whether they'll ever answer it again. Silence is room to breathe, not a gap to fill. There's a pause in the conversation, and suddenly it feels uncomfortable, so you jump in, say something, anything, just to break the silence. It's a common reflex, but one that often cuts a moment short before it's had time to breathe. The idea that silence is room to breathe, not a gap to fill, is rooted in how our brains process information and emotion. In conversations, especially emotionally charged ones, people often need a few seconds to reflect, compose their thoughts, or simply feel what they're feeling. That silence isn't empty. It's doing important work, but because many of us are conditioned to view silence as awkward or a sign that something's gone wrong, we rush to fill it, we change the subject, offer quick advice, or add unnecessary commentary in doing so we can unintentionally interrupt someone's processing or pressure them into responding before they're ready. Think about a moment when someone shared something personal. If they paused for a few seconds, it didn't necessarily mean they were done. It meant they were still unfolding what they wanted to say. Letting that pause happen can feel uncomfortable, but it allows the other person to stay with their thought instead of switching gears prematurely. Psychologically, silence is part of communication. It gives people space to feel safe, especially when they're being vulnerable. It signals that there's no rush, no demand to perform, and that you're there not just to hear but to listen. In relationships, therapy, or everyday conversation, the ability to sit with silence, even a few seconds longer than feels natural, can completely change the tone of an interaction. It shows patience, presence, and emotional maturity. And more often than not, what follows that quiet moment is exactly what needed to be said. Let people exit conversations gently. When someone says, "I should get going," it's not always just about time. It's often a gentle signal that they're ready to wrap things up. But in social situations, that signal gets ignored more often than you'd think, and that's where things get awkward. Let people exit conversations gently is a social and psychological cue that's easy to miss, but important to understand. In everyday interactions, whether it's a phone call, a coffee chat, or a casual catch-up, there's often a moment when one person starts sending soft signals that they're ready to leave. They might check the time shift, their body, or say something like, "Well, anyway." These are quiet ways of closing the loop. Ignoring those cues by starting a new topic or stretching the conversation further can make people feel trapped. It shifts the tone from friendly to forced, and the more this happens, the more emotionally tiring these interactions become. Over time, psychologically, this relates to autonomy. People want to feel like they can manage their own time and energy without needing to defend it. If exiting a conversation turns into a negotiation or a guilt trip, it chips away at that autonomy. Letting someone leave gently doesn't mean ending things abruptly. It just means recognizing the cues, responding with warmth, and making the exit feel easy. A quick, sincere, "It was great talking to you," or "Let's catch up again soon," gives people permission to go without tension. This small shift in awareness can make conversations more respectful and sustainable, especially in friendships or work settings where energy and time are often stretched thin. Because knowing when to let someone go is just as important as knowing how to hold a good conversation. If you see someone eating alone, smile. You're in a cafeteria, food court, or cafe. Every table buzzes with chatter except one. There, someone eats alone, head down, maybe scrolling, maybe just sitting quietly. It's easy to look past them. But what if you didn't? A simple, warm smile in that moment can shift their entire emotional experience. Psychologically, this is tied to social recognitions, more nonverbal cues like eye contact or a smile signal belonging. Humans are wired to notice these cues. Sitting alone in public, especially while eating, can feel exposing. This links to the spotlight effect, where people feel like everyone is watching, even if they're not. A smile doesn't erase loneliness, but it says, you're not invisible. You matter here too. Research shows that even casual interactions, what psychologists call weak ties, can improve mood and connection. You don't need to chat or offer company. Just one brief human gesture can ease someone's discomfort and gently affirm their presence. Smiling at someone alone isn't pity, it's permission. Permission to exist comfortably in shared space without judgment. In a world that often overlooks the quiet or solitary, this simple act becomes a moment of inclusion. It costs nothing. It changes more than you think. Describe impact before intent. You say something, it lands wrong, and someone gets hurt. Your instinct to clarify, that's not what I meant. But before defending your intention, try this. Instead, acknowledge the impact first. In psychology, conflict often turns unproductive when emotional responses are overlooked. People react to how they felt, not what you meant. So, when you lead with "I didn't mean it that way," it can sound dismissive. A better move, say, "I see that hurt. You or I didn't realize that would come across that way." This signals emotional presence. It validates their experience. Then, once they feel seen, you can explain your intent without sounding defensive. This method is rooted in empathy. It tells the person you care more about how they feel than protecting your image. It also prevents the common cycle where people double down on defending themselves while the hurt party feels invalidated. Whether it's a friend, partner, or colleague, the order of your response matters. Impact first, intent second. That small shift creates space for healing. It doesn't mean accepting blame for something you didn't mean. It means showing that you value their perspective. Repair starts when people feel understood. So start there. Make space for the late bloomer. They didn't land the dream job by 22 or discover their passion in high school. While others climbed ladders quickly, they were still finding the ladder. But growth doesn't follow a single timeline. Psychologically, this reflects developmental pacing. People thrive at different speeds. Socially, though, we often favor early bloomers. We praise the prodigy, reward the fast track, and overlook the slow burn. But being late to bloom isn't being behind. It's being different, and that difference can hold depth. Late bloomers often come with perspective shaped by observation, trial, and resilience. In school, they might be dismissed too quickly. At work, passed over. In friend groups, subtly judged. This is due, in part, to the false consensus effect. We assume our path is the normal path, but it's not. Creating space for late bloomers means inviting possibility without a deadline. It's the teacher who stays hopeful after a student fails. The manager who spots potential, not polish. It's the friend who waits for you to find your footing without making you feel behind. Because when late bloomers do arrive, they bring. More than skills, they bring story, and their path, though quieter, is just as valuable and often more textured. Empathy expands when we ask, not assume. You see someone struggling, you think you know what they're feeling, but do you? True empathy doesn't live in assumptions, it grows in curiosity. In psychology, empathy is often broken into two types: emotional and cognitive. Emotional is feeling with someone. Cognitive is understanding them. The second requires asking, "What was that like for you? Do you want to talk about it?" These questions open space for the person to define their own reality. When we assume instead, we project our lens onto their experience. That's not empathy, it's guesswork. And while well-intended, it can lead to misreading, oversimplifying, or even missing the real story. When you ask, you're not digging, you're inviting. People feel safer and more seen when they get to narrate their own emotions. This is especially true in moments of vulnerability. Maybe someone's quiet after a breakup, assume they're heartbroken, but they're actually relieved. Or a friend's upset and you guess they feel angry when really they're scared. Questions make room for complexity. Assumptions shrink people. Empathy grows when we make space to hear someone as they are, not how we expect them to be. Credit original sources. History has enough erasers. Behind every insight, discovery, or shift in thinking is a person. Someone who took the first risk to voice an idea. Crediting them doesn't just follow etiquette, it preserves dignity. In psychology, this links to source memory, our ability to remember where we heard something. But in culture, sources often vanish. Quotes get shortened. Ideas are shared without names. And over time, recognition disappears. This has real consequences, especially for voices historically excluded: women, people of color, underrepresented thinkers. Their ideas often get traction only when echoed by someone more acceptable. Crediting the original voice keeps truth intact. It honors intellectual effort and shows others that their contributions matter. It builds trust. When we trace ideas to their origin, we preserve the full story, not just the soundbite. In classrooms, group projects, social media, it's easy to borrow brilliance. It takes intention to give it back. But doing so says, "I see you. I respect your work." In a world that often erases quietly, crediting becomes a quiet form of justice, one that helps future voices speak a little louder. Being right is less important than being kind. Conversations don't break down because of facts. They break down because of tone, timing, and the deep human urge to win. In psychology, arguments often trigger the brain's defensive system. It stops listening, starts fighting. You may be right, but if you're unkind, it doesn't land. Being right feels powerful. Being kind feels safe. And safety matters more when emotions are high. Correcting someone sharply, even if you're accurate, can make them feel small. That's especially true in close relationships. A sharp "actually" might win you a point, but it loses presence, connection, and sometimes trust. Kindness isn't silence. It's choosing how and when to speak. It's asking yourself, does this correction matter? Will it deepen or damage this moment? In work, family, or friendships. Kindness lets conversation continue instead of shutting down. Over time, what people remember isn't whether you had the right answer. They remember how you made them feel, and often that memory lasts far longer than the moment. Your reaction is part of someone else's memory. What people remember most about a moment isn't just what happened, it's how it felt. And how it felt often depends on you. Your facial expression, your tone, your presence, these shape someone else's memory more than the actual event. Neuroscience confirms this. When we recall experiences, we refeel the emotions tied to them. So when someone shares something personal or vulnerable, your reaction becomes part of that emotional record. A distracted glance or dismissive response might seem minor, but it lingers. The reverse is also true. Genuine interest, even a warm "I'm glad you told me," can turn a hard memory into a moment of connection. Psychologists call this co-regulation, the way our nervous systems respond to each other. We either ease or amplify one another. So when someone trusts you enough to show something real, remember your presence can soothe or scar. You're not just a bystander in their story. You're part of it. Live in a way that relieves, not adds emotional weight. Some people make you feel lighter after a conversation, others heavier. The difference often comes down to intention, not in what they say, but how they show up. Living in a way that relieves emotional weight means choosing steadiness, especially in chaos. It means asking yourself, does my energy help settle the room or stir it? Psychology calls this emotional contagion. We catch feelings from one another. Calmness is contagious, so is chaos. People who respond to stress with grounded presence give others permission to breathe. This doesn't mean avoiding conflict. It means meeting conflict without throwing gasoline on it. At work, this might look like a manager who explains bad news with clarity and calm. In relationships, it's the friend who listens before offering advice. Even posture, tone, or silence can ease tension. You don't have to solve every problem, but if your presence makes things feel a little more stable, a little more possibly or making an impact that matters. Reply all only if every eye cares. You get an email sent to 10 people. One person replies thanks to everyone, then another. Suddenly, 10 unnecessary pings clutter everyone's inbox. It seems polite, but psychologically, it's distraction. This is an example of communication overload, where the volume of messages undermines their value. In cognitive psychology, this touches on attention economics. Every ping costs someone focus. Reply all should be used like a group announcement only, when what you're saying truly matters to everyone. If your response is only relevant to 1 or 2 people, message them directly. In a world of non-stop alerts, restraint is respectful. It shows emotional intelligence. It respects people's time, attention, and mental space. Communication isn't just about speaking, it's about knowing when not to. Every unnecessary email may be small, but collectively, they add friction. So when in doubt, don't reply or reply smart. Don't punish someone for being fragile. Someone cries easily, struggles with feedback, gets overwhelmed in situations others navigate easily. The temptation is to label them too sensitive, but don't. Fragility isn't failure, it's emotional. Sensitivity, and it deserves care, not criticism. Psychology calls this emotional invalidation, when someone's feelings are dismissed as wrong or excessive. The damage isn't just hurt feelings, it's shame, self-doubt, silence. A person who feels punished for being sensitive learns to hide it. That's not strength, that's fear. In workplaces, it might look like sarcasm after someone reacts emotionally. At home, it might be rushing someone to calm down before they're ready. This doesn't mean walking on eggshells. It means holding space without adding pressure. Sometimes all someone needs is a calm voice, a beat of patience, or just not being judged. People recover faster when they don't feel ashamed for struggling. Compassion doesn't lower expectations. It makes meeting them more possible. Model vulnerability so others can risk growth in any kind of group or workplace, classroom, or group of friends. People often wait and watch. They're figuring out what's acceptable, what's too much, and what might feel unsafe to say. That's why model vulnerability so others can risk growth matters so much. In psychology, this is known as social modeling, the way we learn from watching others. When someone in a group chooses to be open, honest, or even imperfect, they send a powerful signal. It's okay to be human here. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the courage to be emotionally transparent. It means saying, I'm unsure, or I made a mistake, or this part of my life is hard. When someone models that kind of honesty, it builds what researchers call psychological safety, the kind of environment where people feel safe taking emotional risks. A boss who says, I messed that up. A teacher who admits they used to struggle with the same topic. Or a friend who shares that they're not okay. All of them are creating space for others to step out from behind their own fear. That openness can shift an entire group dynamic. It leads to more honest conversations, better collaboration, and stronger relationships. Modeling vulnerability doesn't mean spilling every detail of your life. It just means being willing to go first. And when someone goes first, others feel braver. In quiet ways, they begin to follow. That's how trust grows and how growth begins. Don't be the first one to laugh at your own joke. You might say something funny, but when you're the first to laugh at it, the energy changes. Suddenly, it's less about the humor and more about seeking reassurance. Don't be the first one. To laugh at your own joke isn't really about jokes. It's about timing, presence, and social awareness. When someone tells a joke and then immediately laughs at it, it often comes off as a bit anxious, like they're trying to fill space or force the reaction. In contrast, when you let the moment hang even for a beat, it gives others the space to connect with the humor on their own. That shared laughter is what creates a real moment. Comedians master this. They wait. They trust their timing. They let the silence breathe, because that's where the audience steps in. In regular conversations, it works the same way. Laughing too early can signal insecurity. It's a way of saying, please think I'm funny, before giving others a chance to decide. But when you wait, it suggests confidence. It says, I trust the moment. Humor works best when it's shared. Jumping ahead with laughter turns it into something about you. Waiting turns it into something between you. And in that space, connection happens. Let others outgrow your memory of them. Let others outgrow your memory of them means being willing to update the version of someone you've kept in your mind. It's a quiet form of respect. Psychologically, it's common to form fixed ideas about people, especially those we've known a long time. A flaky sibling, a moody friend, a careless coworker. Over time, those labels stick. And when people change, we often don't notice because we're too attached to who they used to be. This is linked to confirmation bias, our tendency to see what we expect and filter out what we don't. So even when someone is trying, growing, evolving, we may miss it because it doesn't fit the old narrative. Imagine someone who used to be unreliable now stepping up, but no one seems to see it. That can feel defeating. Growth doesn't always come with a big announcement. Sometimes it's just a slow change in habits, tone, or energy. And when we insist on keeping people in past versions of themselves, we not only hurt the relationship, we limit their progress. Letting people outgrow your memory of them means choosing curiosity over assumptions, watching for new behavior instead of clinging. 2 old stories. It's not just a kindness, it's a kind of truth, because everyone deserves the chance to become someone new. Answer the call, even if it's awkward. Some calls come out of nowhere. A friend you haven't spoken to in years. A coworker who rarely reaches out. A family member calling late at night. It can feel unexpected, uncomfortably then tempting to ignore, but answering, even when it feels awkward, can be more powerful than we think. Psychologically, people often reach out from a vulnerable place. Maybe they don't know how to say what they really want to say. Maybe they're testing the waters, hoping the connection is still there. Avoidance feels easier. We tell ourselves, we'll get back to it. But in reality, avoiding these moments often adds more emotional weight. In psychology, avoidance tends to reinforce anxiety. The longer we leave a message unanswered, the harder it becomes to reply. But even a simple response, short text, a quick call can say something bigger. I see you, I'm here. Ignoring often doesn't feel neutral. It can feel like rejection. Answering doesn't mean diving into a long, emotional talk. It just means meeting the moment with presence. In a world full of fast distractions and surface-level communication, sometimes the quiet kindness of answering awkward or not is the thing that rebuilds a bridge someone was scared to walk across. Hold space instead of holding court. A conversation begins. Someone opens up, but before they're done, you've jumped in, sharing advice, telling your own story, steering the moment. That's the difference between holding court and holding space. Holding space is about creating a safe container for someone else's feelings without rushing to fix, compare, or interrupt. It means showing up with calm attention and letting the other person be fully heard. Psychologically, this builds emotional safety, a space where people feel free to speak without fear of being corrected or overshadowed. Holding court often comes from good intentions. You want to help, you relate. But suddenly, the spotlight has shifted to you, and the person who needed to speak is now listening instead. True support sometimes looks like silence. A simple that sounds really hard, followed by stillness. That pause says, I'm not here to take over. I'm here to be with you. It takes restraint, but also empathy. It's a way of honoring someone else's process without needing to insert your own. In emotional moments, being a steady backdrop is more valuable than being the loudest voice. And that presence, quiet, open, unassuming, is what turns conversations into healing. Replace "let me know" with a specific offer. When someone's going through something tough, it's natural to want to help. So we say, let me know if you need anything. But while the offer is kind, it rarely leads to actual support. That's because in times of stress, vague offers can feel like pressure. The brain is already overloaded. This is called cognitive load. Even small decisions, like figuring out how to ask for help, become difficult. Replacing "let me know" with something specific makes all the difference. It turns the emotional labor back into a shared task. Can I drop off dinner Tuesday? Or want me to take the kids for a couple hours Friday? Now you're offering something usable. The person just has to say yes or no, not brainstorm how you could help. Psychologically, this is proactive empathy support that anticipates need instead of waiting to be asked. It lowers the barrier. It removes guilt. And most importantly, it turns kindness from words into action. At home, at work, with friends, clear offers reduce friction. they make the next step easier. And when someone's already carrying too much, that one less thing to figure out can be a real gift. Ask if they want advice or just space. You're talking to a friend. They start opening up. Before they've even finished, you're offering solutions. It feels helpful, but it might not be. The principle behind ask if they want advice or just space is about giving someone control over their own emotional process. When people share a struggle, they aren't always looking for answers. Often, they just want to be heard. Asking, "Do you want advice or just someone to talk to?" puts the power back in their hands. It's a small question, but it shifts everything. Instead of assuming what's helpful, you're offering choice, and that creates emotional safety. For example, someone says, "I'm stressed at work." Jumping in with "you should take time off" might be well-intentioned, but misses the mark if they're not ready for solutions. Asking instead, "Want to vent or figure something out?" changes the tone. You're not fixing, you're supporting. This approach builds emotional intelligence. It prevents miscommunication, reduces frustration, and encourages more open sharing in the future. Because when people get to set the terms for how they're helped, they feel seen, not managed. And that's what makes conversations safer and more meaningful. Don't confuse silence with indifference. You share something important. Someone goes quiet. Your brain fills in the blank. They don't care. But that might not be true. Don't confuse silence with indifference is about understanding the deeper reasons behind quiet moments. In psychology, silence often reflects emotional processing. People go quiet not because they feel nothing, but because they're feeling too much. They may be overwhelmed, unsure what to say, or afraid of saying the wrong thing. In emotionally charged situations, grief, conflict, vulnerability, silence is sometimes the only way to hold the moment. The mind is sorting, the heart is heavy, and words can feel too small. Misreading that quiet as apathy can drive disconnection. But if we pause and allow for that silence, we make space for something real to form. Not everyone processes emotions out loud. Some think first, then speak. Some need time. Instead of rushing to fill the space or pulling away, try staying present. Your patience can be the bridge between feeling misunderstood and feeling safe, because stillness isn't the absence of care. Sometimes it's how care begins. Be always humble about success. Success can open doors, but humility is what keeps them open. Be always humble about success means letting your accomplishments speak without turning up the volume. This doesn't mean pretending you didn't earn it or downplaying your skills. It means recognizing that your worth doesn't depend on constantly reminding people of it. Psychologically, people connect more deeply with those who succeed without needing to boast. There's a concept called status signaling, how people display their success through behavior or appearance. But research shows we trust and respect those who don't constantly need to signal. Humility makes room for others. When you say, "I got here through hard work and help," or "I don't have all the answers," it creates space for collaboration, not competition. It builds psychological safety, the kind of environment where others feel seen, heard, and safe to grow. Sharing credit, staying curious, and being honest about missteps. These habits don't diminish your success, they strengthen it, because what people remember most isn't just what you did, it's how you made them feel while doing it. And when humility is part of the story, success doesn't just elevate you, it lifts others to. Some kindnesses are invisible on purpose. Not all acts of kindness are loud. Some are done in silence, behind the scenes, and on purpose. The psychology of some kindnesses are invisible. On purpose comes from prosocial behavior, helping others with no expectation of return. These are the gestures you don't post about or announce, like refilling a coffee pot no one noticed was empty, fixing someone's mistake quietly, checking on a friend who rarely asks for help. These actions are powerful because they carry no agenda. There's no pressure to say thank you, no performance to applaud. That's what makes them feel safe and sincere. Psychologically, invisible kindness removes social stress. People don't feel like they owe you. They just feel supported. These small gestures build trust, create cohesion, and add quiet warmth to daily life. They don't need recognition to be remembered, because often the person they were meant for notices. And even if no one else does, those small unseen kindnesses create the kind of safety and care that holds everything together. Assume there's a hard first draft behind every "I'm fine." Someone says, "I'm fine," but their tone is flat. Their eyes avoid yours, and their body is tense. On the surface, the words seem simple, but underneath, there's often a storm still being sorted out. The phrase "assume there's a hard first draft behind every "I'm fine" points to the emotional work people do before they feel safe enough to be vulnerable. Psychologically, this connects to emotional filtering, the process of censoring feelings before expressing them. People say "I'm fine" not because they feel okay, but because it's the version of their truth they feel is safest to share. At that moment, it's like a rough draft, unpolished, incomplete, and often covering up more than it reveals. Saying "I'm fine" might really mean "I don't know how to talk about it yet," or "I don't know if you'll understand." This doesn't mean you need to push people to open up, but rather to listen with more than your ears. Pay attention to what's not being said, changes in tone, patterns in behavior, the silences that linger too long. Offer patience, not pressure, presence, not prying. Because when someone is still sorting their feelings, your calm presence gives them permission to move at their own pace. The real story may unfold in layers, and it's not about the words themselves, it's about what it took for someone to speak at all. Offer specific help. Reduce friction for the struggling. Saying "let me know if you need anything" feels supportive. But when someone is overwhelmed, it can sound like another task on their already full plate. The idea behind offer specific help, reduce friction for the struggling, is rooted in how stress affects decision-making. When people are in survival mode, exhausted, grieving, anxious, they experience decision fatigue. Even simple choices become too heavy. So when we offer vague help, we unintentionally shift the burden back onto them. But if you say, "I'm going to the store, can I bring you anything?" or "I'm free Sunday, want me to watch the kids?" you're reducing friction. You've already done the thinking. Now they just have to say yes or no. That clarity makes it easier to accept support. Psychologically, this taps into action-oriented empathy. It's not just feeling for someone, it's doing something that actually helps. At work, it might mean saying, "I can handle that follow-up email," instead of "let me know if you need help." At home, it could be texting, "I made extra soup. Want some dropped off?" These offers don't just make things easier, they preserve dignity. They say, "I see your load, and I've thought of a way to lighten it." In hard moments, that kind of help lands deeper than words ever could. Confidence is comfort with imperfection. We often think confidence means being flawless, nailing every word, every move, every plan. But real confidence looks different. Confidence is comfort with imperfection. It's not about always getting things right, it's about being okay when you don't. This idea is tied to psychological flexibility, the ability to adapt, stay grounded, and keep going, even when things don't go smoothly. Truly confident people don't need perfection to feel secure. They trust they can recover, adjust, and move forward. You see this in the speaker who fumbles a word but keeps talking without panic, or the leader who says, "I don't know the answer, let me find out." These aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of strength. Psychologically, this mindset boosts self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to handle challenges. When you stop seeing mistakes as threats and start seeing them as part of the process, everything changes. You take more risks, try more things, and grow more steadily. You stop hiding behind fear and start engaging with life more honestly. Confidence isn't about never failing. It's about failing and not flinching. And often, the most powerful kind of confidence is quiet. It's relaxed in the face of discomfort. It's calm when corrected. It's open while learning. That kind of confidence doesn't crack under pressure, learns from it. Turn envy into curiosity. You see someone land a dream job, post a book deal, or take the trip you've always wanted. Envy shows up before you can stop it. It's normal, but there's a more useful path. Turn envy into curiosity. The psychology here is about redirecting comparison. Envy is a social emotion that arises when we feel someone else has something we lack. Left unchecked, it can become resentment or self-criticism, but reframed, it becomes fuel. Instead of thinking, why them, ask, how did they do it? That shift opens you to growth. It's called active comparison, a mindset where you focus on learning rather than judging. For example, if a coworker gets a promotion, envy might say, they always get lucky. Curiosity asks, what did they do differently? What could I apply in my path? In creative work, too, curiosity can ask, why does their project resonate? What's working in their process? That attitude reduces emotional reactivity and builds strategy. Psychologically, it feeds a growth mindset. It reminds you that success isn't a magic trick. It's often the result of steps you can learn. Envy points to what you care about. Curiosity helps you move toward it. One reaction keeps you stuck. The other helps you grow. Let envy knock, but let curiosity open the door. Some things want witness, not repair. When someone shares pain, a breakup, a loss, or a bad day, our first instinct is often to fix it, offer a solution, make it better. But not all pain wants solving. Some things want witness, not repair. Emotional support isn't always about answers. Often, it's about presence. When someone opens up, it's not because they think you can fix it. It's because they trust you to hold it with them. Trying to solve it too quickly can feel like brushing their emotions aside. You might mean well, but what they really need is for you to say, that's hard. I'm here. Psychologically, this is about emotional attunement, meeting someone where they are without trying to move them. Just being there, without pressure or judgment, is often what helps most. Imagine a friend says, I miss my dad every day. A fixing response says, you should try therapy. A witnessing response says, that must feel really heavy. One offers a plan, the other offers presence. And it's presence quiet, steady, patient that helps people heal. Not because you did something big, but because you stayed. Remember birthdays, even quietly. A simple, happy birthday message, a small text, a quiet mention a day late. It doesn't take much, but it lands. The psychology behind remember birthdays, even quietly, is about feeling seen. For many people, birthdays aren't about parties, they're about being remembered. It connects to our basic human need for recognition. A remembered birthday says, "I carry you in my mind, even when you're not in front of me." This doesn't require a big gesture. A short message during a tough week can mean more than a grand celebration. Especially for someone who feels overlooked, these small acknowledgements carry deep emotional weight. Psychologically, it builds what's called relational closeness, the sense that someone notices and values your life. It says, "You matter, even when you're quiet about it." And when we take note of someone's birthday, even quietly, it creates a tiny moment of belonging. Not for show, just because we care. And those are often the moments people carry with them the longest. Progress beats perfection. You start a new habit, working out, journaling, eating better, and then miss a day. Suddenly, it feels like failure. That's the perfection trap. And psychology offers a better truth. Progress beats perfection, always. This is rooted in behavioral momentum, the idea that small, consistent actions create real change. When people chase perfection, they often delay starting, quit after small setbacks, or wait for the right time. But progress makes space for reality. You didn't write a whole chapter. Write a paragraph. You didn't run a mile. Walk around the block. These steps may feel small, but they build something lasting. They reinforce self-efficacy, your belief that you can keep going, even imperfectly. Perfection tends to collapse at the first sign of struggle. Progress says, keep going anyway. This mindset applies to everything: health, learning, relationships, creativity. It encourages you to focus on systems, not scorecards, and the people who succeed long-term. They aren't flawless, they're just consistent. They keep showing up one imperfect, powerful step at a time. If these words made you pause, reflect, or feel seen, you're not alone. Every story here is a gentle reminder that emotional growth, empathy, and connection start with awareness. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that go beyond surface, talk into the heart of what makes us human. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next insight. Comment below which lesson spoke to you the most today, because sometimes the right words at the right moment can change everything. Let's grow, one real conversation at a time.